Well, hey there, Dirt Crew. Today we're rating the most requested trail on the comments on YouTube and our Facebook postings, East Rim in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. This is the first mountain bike trail in the CVNP, and East Rim Trail System has stunning views, varied terrain, exciting obstacles, and an element of adventure for anyone who wants to explore it. This trail is obviously designed by mountain bikers for mountain bikers, and it truly shows in its attention to detail. Now, when East Rim is mentioned, what most people generally think is East Rim is actually Lamb Loop, sometimes called East Rim Phase 2, which is what we're going to be reviewing today. But because this was filmed on a Saturday, and this trail is bi-directional, we're going to be riding this trail clockwise. Now, there's something that needs to be mentioned, in that this trail is completely different based off which direction you ride it, due to the challenging and technical features, massive number of jumps and tabletops, and quite frankly, the variations in the terrain. The overall feel of the trail is different. Now, something I should mention is that it's well known that I ride a pedal assist bike, and these are not allowed at East Rim, as determined by the National Park System. We did, however, get special permission to both film and ride here by the Department of Media Relations and Permitting, though of course, I have to lock out the assist and pedal under my own power. This, of course, makes it so that I rate climbing even lower than I normally would. And since I'm still having to transport all the extra weight of the bike and I have less aggressive gearing options than Emily, well, what you won't be seeing is me swearing and pushing my bike up hill after hill. Please do not ride East Rim on a pedal assist or an e-bike, and this video is not encouraging you to do so, but I do encourage you to find a way to experience it for yourself while abiding by the rules and regulations of the park system. Now, East Rim is a project that serves as another example of the strong partnership between the Conservancy, the National Park Service, and community organizations. For this project, the Conservancy and the National Park Service worked very closely with the Cleveland Area Mountain Biking Association, or CAMBA, to create this world-class mountain bike trail for Ohio's National Park. In one of our previous episodes, we spoke with Stephen Metzler, the current president of CAMBA, about this trail specifically, and we encourage you to check out that video in the description below to show you what all goes into getting a trail like this approved. Now, when you go on to Single Tracks or MTB Project, East Rim is actually a combination of trails, of which you have Lamb Loop, which is the largest and most approachable trail, which shares a trailhead with Edson Run, a very fast and very intimidating downhill jump line, which I've gone down and cased pretty much every jump along the way. Now, across Interstate 80, you have the actual East Rim, or sometimes called Phase 1, and Post Line, which is an advanced section labeled Boulder Field, and let me tell you, it is a boulder field. Now, Lamb Loop is 4 miles long, and in this direction, as you saw, the first 1.5 miles, you have a nearly constant 4 to 5% downhill grade, with lots of berms, jumps, and tabletops to experience. It also runs parallel to Interstate 80 highway, which actually is something that's extremely uncommon in that it has over a mile of uninterrupted straightness. When we looked at a map, there's very few turns, and of course, since it's all downhill, you can find yourself riding the entirety of the first third of this trail without hitting the brakes or needing a single pedal stroke. Of course, the timing of this narration is pretty much perfect, as when the first mile and a half is over, the best times were behind you, and now you've got to pedal yourself out of the valley. You make up those 200 feet of declination over the course of the next 3/4 of a mile, just to get another 1/4 mile of downhill, another climb, a half mile of downhill, and then a mile and a half of climbing out. The climb out is not steady, however, and often you may find yourself walking more than riding. This is the main crux of the clockwise versus counterclockwise debate here. Clockwise, you have the most amount of uninterrupted downhill flow. A total of about 2 out of the 4 miles, you're going to be riding completely out of the saddle, wind in your face, and telling yourself not to brake as you head through those berms. Going counterclockwise, however, you start the first half mile with a downhill that is over 3 times the steepness of the grade of going clockwise. But it only lasts about a half a mile, followed by some climbing, another half mile downhill, and then you spend the last 1.5 miles slowly climbing out of the valley. But I digress, as we're going to do an entire other video on going counterclockwise. Now that uphill rock garden we just saw, it's something that frankly I've never been able to do. And I came about a week ago to scope out the trail since Emily wasn't available, and I tried maybe 30 times with nothing but failure. Of course, while taking a break, I got completely styled on by some veteran riders. So, it's all about technique. Now at this point, we're deep into the climb back out, and this is one of the last remaining rock gardens and one of the steepest and most challenging parts of that climb. I was able to get it, but after a couple of pretty frustrating attempts.
Yes.
Oh God. Oh.
After this point, you're mostly just climbing out, with a few more fun sections thrown in. But in the interest of time, let's move on to the dirty scale. The dirty scale rates a trail from 1 to 5 and 5 key metrics which determine how fun the trail is, based off a person's individual riding preferences. Being lower on the scale is not necessarily a bad thing, such as for difficulty, as an inexperienced or newer rider may prefer a easy or moderate trail to practice and refine their technique without getting frustrated or putting themselves at risk on a more difficult trail. So with that being said, let's start with difficulty. Or what's the minimum and maximum skill levels to ride all of the features of this trail? Well, as you guessed, this is a pretty moderate trail system with deceptively advanced features. What might look like just a little rock jump might actually turn out to be a 12-foot gap jumper. And in one direction it may just look like a little rock garden is a frustratingly challenging rock climb going the other direction. For that, we're going to give this an average 4 out of 5. Many of the features do have bypasses, but often they don't. This trail is very scalable though, and I've seen people sending those 12-foot gaps, and I've been able to case a few of them. But what this does is it challenges you. It makes you take more risks, it challenges you to get better, and ultimately it motivates you to learn how to send those. Now next is Ingenuity, or how well is this trail built around the natural terrain and geology? Does it have unique features, and what sets it apart from other trails? Here we're going to give the trail a 4 out of 5. Between this trail and the other trails within the system, they kinda have it all. Challenging terrain, gorgeous landscapes, different types of forests, and it makes amazing use of the normally flat Ohio landscape. For its location, it's the most aggressive trail system around, and the sheer diversity of the multiple trail systems showed just how much time and thought went into designing these trails. The only way it could have possibly been rated higher is when they finish the bottom of Edson Run and extend the fire road so that you can take that back and session the first half of this trail over and over again. When this happens, I'll come back and edit this video. It also loses about half a point since the noise of the highway pretty much never goes away, so you're always listening to it the entire time. Now for rideability, or the flow and feel of the trail, here we're going to give this trail a 5 out of 5. It rides extremely fast and fun at the beginning, and like I said, if you get good enough, you can ride almost 2 full miles uninterrupted with barely braking or pedaling at all, which is completely unheard of around here. I frankly refuse to take points away from this trail, as yeah, sure, later on there's lots of climbing and it's challenging, but it makes up for it with its really fast, fun sections, the diversity of flow. I mean, there's huge, extremely well-built berms and jumps, and the dirt is just so perfectly packed that, well, this trail sets the gold standard for flow in this direction, which may or may not be the case in our next video. Now, it should not surprise you that for trail features or the variety and the amount of skill challenges along the trail system, this gets a 5 out of 5. With the exception of big wood features, this trail has it all, and it has it over and over again. There's no other trail system that packs in so many optional features, extra intended lines, transitions, and skill challenges into a single trail. This trail system was built to cater to the advanced rider, but still let that rider bring his more inexperienced friends and family along, and it does it with effortless ease and elegance. Now lastly, we have yielding, or how well known a trail is, how much you need to stop, and how likely you are to encounter other people at the trail or trailhead. And here we're going to give the trail a 2 out of 5. If you've been around mountain biking in Northeast Ohio, you've heard someone talking about or telling a horror story about East Rim. Honestly, because it's so well built, it brings in a ton of riders. The parking lot will sometimes fill up entirely, and you're going to have to find somewhere else to park legally, as the local law enforcement aggressively tickets anyone parking in the grass. And on the trail, you'll often find yourself surrounded by a dozen or so people at the trailhead during peak hours. But that said, if you are riding at a pretty consistent pace, you'll find yourself pretty much keeping to yourself, though you are going to run into people taking breaks after some of those really punishing climbs. Now, overall, I said it at the beginning, this is the number 3 trail in all of Ohio, and it deserves a 5 out of 5, even with some of the categories being a little bit lower. I'm acknowledging that if I was on more appropriate equipment, climbing would actually be easier, and I wouldn't be taking 45 minutes to loop it, and the reason is, well, right now I stop and I keep hitting things over and over again that I really enjoy. I session it, I take the time to learn it and get better. This has some of the best natural features I've ever seen. Every time I've ridden this trail, I have found a new line that I realized was actually an intended transition, and some of them have completely changed how I look at trail building. This trail teaches you. Emily even mentioned it to me in the ride home. There are so many jumps that she was forced to learn how to preload properly and use her legs, not just her arms, and for the first time ever, she felt the rush of weightlessness as she got just a little bit of air. This trail is a gem. We're lucky to have it so close to home. Thanks for watching. Now let's go get dirty.